All right, Colin, it's all yours.
Wonderful. Well, hey, folks, thank you all for taking the time to join this conversation today. And so just to play back what I think I heard during introductions there, in addition to the San Diego County folks, I heard one other district that's on the line. Is there more than one district that's with us right now?
We do have, I see Santee is on there, and I
Okay.
do believe South Bay is on there. Rigo is from South Bay. So
Oh,
um,
great.
if you two would like to introduce yourselves, that would be great. Oh, I'm sorry. Todd is from San Isidro. I'm sorry, Todd. Sorry. You were from Santee many moons ago. So I apologize for that.
So I'll go ahead and get this conversation rolling and lead off with a little bit of background. So Digital Promise has been working with folks at the county office. I guess it was maybe August that we kicked off this project with the support of the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation to do a year-long deep dive working on this big picture challenge of data interoperability in schools, districts, and counties. And what we're trying to work through with data interoperability is how we can improve student learning outcomes by making assessment systems interoperable. And what that means is the secure and seamless transition of data in between ed tech systems. So what we've seen in plenty of the school districts that we work with is that, districts will work with any number of different ed tech vendors. And when it comes time to kind of move information around so that you can kind of see it all in one place, that would either involve downloading CSV files and passing them around, or uploading files from here and there, or just kind of not being able to have systems that can speak to each other, and instead teachers and administrators having to go to 10 different places to look at 10 different reports, resulting in just kind of a huge time drain in terms of what educators need to see what's happening in their districts and to make the decisions that they need to make. So what we've been working on is solutions that will try to address this challenge by making systems more interoperable, so that schools, districts, counties can have a better view into the data and what's happening within their buildings. So I want to pause for a second, because that's kind of a lot in terms of the foundation of this work. That I'd love to just answer any questions that folks have, just kind of about the parameters of this project to begin with.
When we look at the assessment side of the data integration, does it include local assessments, or is it only state assessments? For example, CAS that uses CalPads to talk to TOMS, or would we be able to incorporate local assessments?
So that's part of what I'm hoping this call will accomplish. So, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Actually, but before I do that, I want to put a pin in that question, see if there are other questions before moving on, because that could actually serve as a great segue. All right, if we're comfortable jumping in, I'm going to share my screen. Are you all able to see what I see here?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So this is what I'm hoping that we're going to accomplish in the next now 45 minutes or so. To start with, talking about what are the tools on the table that we're looking at. If we're talking about making the data that comes from different vendors interoperable, what are the vendors? What are the assessment tools that we want to be looking at? And so if we can kind of start with kind of defining those parameters, which would pick up on that last question that was just asked, then we can kind of dig into the challenges. And this kind of question protocol is very teacher oriented, right? This is really looking at kind of data that can inform classroom practice. And so depending on the tools that we want to include in this conversation, we might kind of zoom out a few layers and think more about kind of at the district level, how students are flowing through their high school experience, for example, rather than the instructional decisions that a teacher might be making. But in general, what we're hoping to accomplish is to take a really close look at what is the data that schools are wrestling with, how does it help you, and how could it help you more, right? And really to understand that, we want to dig into kind of what are the thorns in your side, where are the challenges? And by the end of this conversation, what I'm hoping we can emerge with is a way to fill in this Mad Lib. I need a fill in the blank that will help me accomplish some goal when I am in some particular situation. And if we can get to that point, and I think of this Mad Lib really as kind of a needs statement, the place where I at Digital Promise and Alicia and Pablo and Patrick and others are going to take this next is that we are going to kind of draw from what we've learned and what we've heard from you in this hour and bring together learning analytics researchers at Digital Promise, as well as designers, as well as technology experts to develop a prototype in the coming 3 months that will be a response to the challenges that we've surfaced during this call. So we're hoping that in kind of facilitating this conversation, you're going to, come out with opinions and challenges and the things that don't work for you, because that's exactly the fodder that's going to motivate the work that we're going to be doing in terms of research, design, and technology to try to solve the challenges that are most pressing. So the way to guide this in, I think, is going to start with kind of a focus area. And in conversations with the county office leading up to this conversation, what we've heard is that there could be a great opportunity to have a focus point in this work by looking at CTE pathways. And so just as kind of to take the temperature on that as a focus area, I'd love to just float that out there to the room and say if kind of the terms of the project make sense, would a closer look into how students are moving through the CTE pathways in your district, would that be kind of a valuable focus area given the needs that you have? Thoughts, opinions?
We already do some internal tracking of CTE pathways and with the dashboard state level, but I'm not sure if that's like a main measurement that we use to really look at college career readiness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you speak a little bit more about that? What is the CTE dashboard that you have in place? What does it help you accomplish?
Well, the new indicator that was released by the state for college career readiness, CTE is one of a dozen data points that's used as far as students that complete a capstone course. So I think internally it's something that we look at, but when I think of a data dashboard, that would be kind of one measure, but really it would be more on our, like, literacy, like literacy across the grade levels and assessments that are really gauging how well students are performing on multiple assessments versus just a CTE capstone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And South Bay is more elementary, so I don't know if it would apply to them.
I would agree with you on that about South Bay, and I do like the idea of literacy.
Would love to hear some other voices weigh in about the focus area here.
Hi, this is Rigo Lara at South Bay.
Hey there.
Hi, excuse my lateness here. I just received this invitation like an hour ago. I'm not sure, so I'm just catching up with everything.
And I
Glad you can make
apologize,
it.
Rigo, I apologize. I had sent it to Ken.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I didn't realize he wasn't available, so I apologize.
No, that's what we assumed because yeah, he's been on leave, and so yeah, so I'm catching up here. So I'm going to be listening for a good amount, but yeah, we're K-8. We're mostly elementary. Only 2 of our schools are middle school, our 2 charters. But the literacy approach, I think, is something we can make work.
Wonderful. I'd love to have a few more voices weigh in here and then start to kind of dig in a little bit more deeply.
Colin, a question I have is, do all the districts that will be piloting this in San Diego County, do they all need to have the same focus, or can we have different focuses for different districts?
Yeah, so at this point, in terms of kind of feasibility with a winter and spring timeline, we're hoping to have kind of one prototype that will address a common set of challenges for folks.
So I don't want to speak for San Ysidro, but San Ysidro is also an elementary school district. So the CTE may not work for them as well.
Sure.
Fallbrook is a high school only district. So again, trying to find something that works for all our districts out there. And just that should be something that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And this is a good chance right at the start of this conversation to bust some assumptions. So if the idea of CTE pathways was something that was kicked around at the county office level, a few weeks ago, if that's not appropriate for the people in the room, then let's change course. I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think it may not be just because of our elementary districts that we do have.
Yep, great. So that then if we can shift the focus to literacy, I'm sure that there are already things in place that are happening at the district level when it comes to looking at assessment data in terms of literacy. Maybe just again to kind of start with the foundational questions. Would each district kind of weigh in with a snapshot of what is that you currently have in place, and then we'll drill into how could this project kind of help improve or refine what you have. So what are the things that you have in place when it comes to kind of snapshot view of literacy in your districts?
Well, I can speak for Coronado. So we use CASP, our state assessments, to kind of get that real overarching view of where our students and grade levels of schools are for literacy in both math and ELA. And then we use NWEA map.
Sure.
Up through 8th grade for MAP, and then we use MAP as well in an intervention 9th grade class. And then we have our early literacy assessments. We use the DRA. It's like a running record. for our kindergartners, first graders,
Great.
as an assessment tool.
And so if you just named three there, the state assessment, NWEA map, and DRA, would you describe a little bit about when you go to these three different things, and like when do you consult them, and in order to inform what decisions?
So CASP is annually. We do a data dive in the fall with sites and teachers as far as the CASP scores from the previous year. We also provide them with a list of their current class and how their current kids that are new to them did in the previous year to kind of get to know their levels. MAP, we consult 3 times a year. And we do a fall, winter, spring testing. And then DRA right now is 3 times a year, but with more informal running records throughout the year as needed for intervention groups and new students.
And now with each of those 3 things happening at different time scales, is there any situation right now in which the 3 kind of sets of data are presented at the same time? Or is it 3 things totally discrete, not overlapping in any way?
3 things right now, discrete, not overlapping. We previously used a site, data analytics site, multiple measures, MARS, M-MARS, and we're contracted with another company right now. We're trying to get a dashboard built. It's not very successful at the moment. They're having a hard time working with so much data that we're feeding them. And we would love to have one place where we can visualize all of our assessments side by side, from the district level down to the school level, down to the grade level, down to the teacher level, and down to a student level. It would be amazing. And to then be able to disaggregate it by demographics. We have a unique military population here in Coronado, and we have grants that we have through the Department of Defense where we report a lot of data, and we're doing it all by hand right now.
Oh, wow.
How our military kids are doing in relation to our non-military dependent, and it's all in a giant Excel. And
oh, wow.
So yes, please, all of the above.
I think that's taken us right into the pain points. I want to hear more about that, but first, that was great. Are there other districts on the line right now that can kind of share similar stories from their own perspective?
Well, to piggyback on the giant Excel, I have one with about 50 columns right now. So
wow,
you are
not bad
having here, and it's not very pretty when I have to hand it out to others. So but yeah, it's very similar. We have a DRA as well at one school site, a reading assessment, and Fontes and Pinnell is assessed 3 times a year at the other school sites.
Got it.
Beginning, middle, and end. CAS data, we present heavy in the beginning of the year and work on creating plans throughout the school year. But really, we're revisiting about 6 times a year with principal groups. We have professional learning networks with the principals. 3 or 4 groups. And every focus is based on one piece of the dashboard, one part of the dashboard. So if it's ELA academic indicator, chronic absenteeism, suspension. And so we're revisiting going beyond the overall percentage met. It's really digging into as was just mentioned, the demographics, the student groups, and identifying who they are and the student lists for along with all these columns of data. So you asked, how do we ever align this data? I mean, that's how we're doing it now. But we're really looking for a way to make this more accessible to the principals, where it doesn't come down to creating these large spreadsheets.
Yep. And so the way that you're getting to this point is kind of aggregating information from each of the different assessment vendors, somehow compiling that into this monster 50-column spreadsheet, and then kind of doing your analysis and facilitating your meetings based around what you see in that spreadsheet. Is that right?
Yeah, when we're digging deeper, that's the way we're doing it. We have Illuminate as our DNA, but it's not, Synergy is not feeding, it's not getting all the student groups accurately into Illuminate at the moment. So that's why I have to do all these workarounds at this time.
Got it. Got it.
So yeah, so when it comes down to really the student groups, this is the workaround we're doing right now.
Yep. And just to circle back on one of the things that you said, 6 points in the year when you use this to facilitate meetings or have conversations at the building level. Did I get that right?
Yeah, we're professional learning networks. There's 3 networks, a group of 3 to 4 schools in each one. And again, takes about a month. Every Friday we do it with the groups, or within a 6-week time period, we try to get them all in. And it's really like, just recently we had suspension as a focus. So not just identifying kids who are suspended, but what's their overall story as far as academically and their homeless situation, their foster situation, putting the whole story together for our principals to really know, to help them identify who these kids are and what steps need to be taken to meet their needs.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. Folks from other districts, it sounds like these 2 first examples that we've heard really tightly align. Would other voices be willing to weigh in here? Maybe not. All right, so if we run with these first 2, I'd love to just do a kind of pressure test on this broader goal. How can we combine data from multiple technological systems to support teachers? If that's kind of the goal or the assumption that I came in with, I'd love to just kind of circle back on that for a moment and test that assumption with the room based on these 2 use cases and others if they're out there just maybe a little quiet. Does that goal resonate? Can I get like a verbal thumbs up on that, or someone who'd be willing to help kind of change that sentiment?
Yes, I think that resonates with us.
I agree.
And I'm seeing a message in the chat that participants by phone are muted. So I wonder if there are...
Oh, let me see if I can unmute that. For everybody if needed. I don't know if I can unmute for everybody. I think people just...
*6.
Oh, there. I'm unmuting.
So I'll pose the question again in case there are folks who were shouting into the void there. If the goal that I've got pulled up on the screen here is how can we combine data from multiple technological systems to support teachers? I heard 2 kind of verbal thumbs up. Would love to hear reactions or kind of ways that folks might tweak that more to suit their needs. And hey, if it turns out that the folks who dialed in by phone were quiet anyway, it wasn't just the mute, maybe that's the case.
It wasn't just the mute.
Not a problem. Seeing a message in the chat here from Todd. I'm just going to read it out loud for the group. I know ed services are struggling when combining various data from different systems such as Synergy and Illuminate. I reached out to them to see if they could join the call. Hey, that's great. Thank you, Todd. Yeah, and as part of this project that we've been working on with Alicia, Pablo, Patrick, and others, absolutely involves bringing the vendors themselves to the table. And so as we've been working on this since August, and the work that we're planning to carry on until the end of June, kind of we are in this midpoint of doing a deep dive with districts to understand what their needs are. We're going to be working on developing prototypes of solutions, and then be able to use those prototypes kind of to support the conversations that we're hoping to have with vendors, to say, you know, deep research with your users has resulted in this. This is the kind of thing that your school districts are clamoring for. And by kind of building collective demand, and by having these prototypes to show the opportunity, we're hoping to definitely engage lots of vendors in this work, to support the use of data standards and to make work like this more feasible.
And if I could just add, there's quite, Todd, for you, I know you use Synergy. Synergy, or EduPoint, has already signed on to be part of this project. Correct, Colin?
I believe so. I don't have the list on the top of my mind all the time, but
yeah, I did check for sure EduPoint, because
great.
I know that we have a lot of districts. So
That's great. Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, just to add on to that, this is John Valancourt. Synergy 2019, which we just upgraded to, is EdFi 2.0 compliant, which is the underlying framework that can allow this interoperability. And from our perspective, we have a business intelligence group that works with our learning leadership division, where one of the dashboards they've helped us to create is with regards to EL learning and mastery of language arts and math. So with our Synergy districts, we know how to get the data out for districts that have inputted their test scores, but it's always a challenge with other districts that are using a separate student information system to have the same information in the same format so that we can load it into our dashboards for our clients.
Thank you, John. Yeah, that's great context to share. Yeah, and as we do more outreach to more vendors, kind of encouraging compliance to data standards, and EdFi in particular, since that's the way that we're kind of moving this project forward. Yeah, it's great that we've got a solution in place for some districts, and we're not going to stop until we can make that happen for more. So I want to go back to those two examples that we've heard, and again, unless folks would be willing to contribute more, and ask about what the data is helping educators accomplish. Some of the examples that were just surfaced were kind of ongoing PLCs. It sounds as if the state assessments are typically used kind of once at the start of the year. But would love to just kind of open the floor back up again to hear, in as much kind of gritty nuance as you can provide, kind of when is this data most valuable, and what is it supporting kind of operationally within the district?
I'll go ahead and add a little more commentary.
Thanks.
I think this data is most valuable if it's available all the time in one spot. Right now we're using data to support during our PLCs, similar to San Ysidro, but it becomes less valuable to teachers to use when it's not integrated into one dashboard system. I think they can drill down into a theme right after they give the assessment, but we would like to have it used more on an interim basis in between assessments, using other formative assessments. So it becomes a regular practice during all PLCs and not just at the time the assessment was given.
Yeah, that's great. And so if we stick on that example for a moment, the PLCs have ongoing opportunities to meet and consult this data if they had access to it. Can you describe the setting for kind of where they might find the dashboard? Are they already logging into places where they have other dashboards that this could or should be integrated? Are there kind of proxies or other examples of this where we can kind of draw best practices and build on things that teachers and administrators already do? Or would this be kind of a first of its kind for the educators in your community?
Right now, they're able to access the data individually through that specific assessment site. So NWEA, they have to log into NWEA and access reports. ERA, they log in and they access reports. So it's coming from multiple places. We used to have a system we subscribed to where we would upload CSV files and it would try to integrate it into graphs and you could sort it down through teacher, student, but it was very clunky and teachers weren't logging in and using it. And really what they got was real general and not really digging into like skill based. Like we want to get down to the actual skill where students need that intervention. And so it really wasn't working for us. We're in the process of working with another company, Qualtrics, to build a data dashboard, but we're running into some challenges in that they can't get the files to talk to each other correctly. So we can't right now drill down by demographics our assessment data, and that's really, really critical for us when we're looking at our data.
Hey, that's great to hear, and it's exciting to hear that you've got other work happening with Qualtrics, at least maybe others as well, because the goal of what we're trying to make happen on this really compressed timeline very much is about having the systems speak to each other, so that at least we have a proof of concept that when the systems are interoperable, it's that much more possible to do the kind of work that you're describing. So this is great. Opening the floor again. Others who have other systems in place, other things that they're trying, other kind of practices we can draw upon when it comes to kind of providing teachers and administrators data to help inform their practice. So if that silence might be consensus, I wonder if we can jump down to kind of the last phase of this conversation, which is really about designing solutions. So like I said earlier, the Digital Promise team is bringing learning analytics researchers into this, as well as designers and technologists, with the goal of creating prototypes and solutions of what interoperability can look like and how it can support districts in advancing their goals. To make sure that we are all on the same page when working towards this and bringing in other collaborators to support the effort, we've found that it's really helpful to narrow in on kind of a single North Star to help guide the work. So what I'd like to do is see if we can kind of collaboratively define a single sentence using this kind of Mad Lib structure to identify what that North Star would be. This is the statement. This is the need statement that I'm going to bring back to the research designer technology team when we're beginning to create this prototype for districts in San Diego County. So based on the conversation to this point, I'd love to hear if somebody could chime in and help me fill in the blanks. I need something that's going to help me accomplish a certain goal in a certain setting. I think I can start filling in these blanks, but I think it might kind of hold more weight if this can more closely reflect your voice. So would anybody be willing to chime in here?
All right, I'll give it a go.
Hey, I appreciate it. You get first dibs on saying what it is you need, and this is what we're going to try to build. So lay the foundation for us.
All right, I need one dashboard that will help me provide student level achievement data when working with principals and PLCs.
Great.
And maybe I would add one more. I need one flexible dashboard. Flexible meaning a district would have autonomy to be able to put in measures or thresholds that are specific to our resources and initiatives.
From a county office point of view, it would be nice if we could have data that is readable and understandable. So when we go out and we help districts make decisions on software to buy or where the holes are in their student learning outcomes, we would be able to be looking at the same type of data across the board, regardless of what it is they're using, their assessment software that they're using.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that in terms of kind of the audience for who would be in those conversations, would that be a principal level conversation if we kind of think of them as the end user?
I would think it would be principals if the principals are interested in what's happening at their school site. It could be directors of curriculum or assistant soups of curriculum, but I could see that it would even be for teachers for if we're drilling down to what's happening in their classroom and they want to know, they want the data of did this software that they used work with their students? Did they see scores go up or did they see student learning outcomes rise? So it would be nice to have that type of data that was understandable for all levels in a school, including parents.
That's great. Alicia, did I, with that subtle change, the language here, does this need statement reflect your goals as well?
Okay, so Colin, I have to like really zoom in because I'm blind. So let's see.
Hey, hang on, I can help you.
Awesome. That will help me see student level achievement data when working with principals and PLs. Yeah, and maybe, I don't even know if it has to say principals, it could be all school level stakeholders.
Say that one more time.
All school level stakeholders. Or all stakeholders, something like that.
Yep.
I had the same thought around student level achievement data. I had more about all levels of achievement data down to the student level.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes a difference, but
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Rigo, did that address your comment there? That change?
the all achievement data. Yeah, that works.
Great. So I just want to linger with this up a few moments longer, because the next time you hear from us, ideally we're going to have a proof of concept that illustrates what this could look like. And again, kind of given the short time scale here, we're not thinking that this is going to be something that's immediately going to be ready for kind of launch and immediate adoption. But what we're hoping to do is kind of prove the model that would address this need, so that we can bring more vendors to the table. And, you know, maybe a few months from now, when we're able to kind of refine this prototype, that it will be something that's going to be kind of action ready for buildings to take on and use in day-to-day practice. So if those are the stakes, one last look at this. I need one flexible, understandable dashboard that will help me see achievement data down to the student level when working with school level stakeholders and PLCs. This is a very big North Star. We didn't compromise or sacrifice much here. I think there's a lot going on. Last moment for thoughts. All right. Well, then I think we might be in an appropriate place to stop for today. So landing with that need statement, and I believe we do have information on the assessment vendors that are part of this conversation for each of your districts. So what we're going to do with the county office and folks on the Digital Promise side is mix all of these ingredients together. The vendors that we know we want to be bringing to the table, the assessment data that would need to be represented, and a prototype that would be able to address this need statement that we've just kind of aligned on. So with that, I'm gonna stop and just say thanks everybody for participating in this. And next steps you will likely hear through Alicia. So Alicia, I want to pass it back to you.
Okay, so what we'll be doing is on our end, we'll be regrouping and talking about what our next steps are. I believe we do have a conference coming up. Is that next month, Colin?
Yep, that's right.
So next month, I won't be going because it's over spring break and I had already had plans, but we'll get that information out to everyone. And we'll be working with Patrick, John, and Juan Pablo on this and getting back to you on what the steps are that you need to do. We'll also be really looking to Colin to see what other schools are doing. I do know that Cajon Valley is 1 or 2 steps ahead of us. Is that correct, Colin?
In terms of this project?
Yes.
You know what? I'm not sure that they are. I'll need to double check on that.
Okay, I thought that they were, but so we'll be moving forward on this and keeping you in the loop the entire time.
That's great.
I think that's any questions before we move forward, before we close off this meeting?
No, just thank you for putting all of this together. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited to have something to share with you the next time we get together, and something to put in front of you that kind of addresses this need statement, and hopefully we'll begin to solve some problems. No more 50-column Excel spreadsheets. That's my goal.
I would love that.
We'll see what we can do.
All right. Well, thank you again.
All right, folks. Thanks very much.
Thank you.